Is this thing working? Are we live? I think we're live. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite background noise generating contraption. It's Two Wheel Tuesday, talking about motorcycles and all things two wheel related. Got some cool updates on the GSXR 1000, which, by the way, we're coming into some winter months. If you're cold, they're cold. Bring them inside. Actually, it's going to get down to like 30 something degrees tonight. So, just so happens GSXR 1000 is hanging out in the office right over there. So, at any rate, hope everybody's having a good one. If it's your first time, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. This is really just us chatting about, in this case, Two Wheel Tuesday, motorcycles. It's just me and you hanging out. This isn't one of those channels where I do a whole lot of editing. I don't have a lot of cuts or clickbaits or anything like that. Typically, it's just me and you hanging out in the office or out in the shop. So, what have I been up to? Well, it's been pretty much all GSXR 1000 all the time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So far, in looking at the thing, we just got through putting on the flush mount blinkers, and I did a bit of a how-to on that. And there's some funny stuff that happens behind the scenes, right? Like there's some things that I just never really can, just never make it because I'm trying to do cut editing and all this other stuff, or rather pause editing. And one of the funny things during that whole install video was I had actually, because I didn't unbolt the fairing to put those blinkers in. You don't have to. You can just, unbolt it, or I'm sorry, unpin it from the inside and put everything together, just making sure that you get that one kind of little dicky-do barb to go into that part in the radiator. Don't forget that if you're working on one of these bikes. But one of the interesting things about working on this, that the whole reason why I had to unbolt the left-hand side of the fairing is because I was trying to get my hand up in there to pinch the two pieces that sit on top of each other for the push pin to go through. And for whatever reason, I could not make it happen. It's like my brain could not wrap around the concept of putting one piece of plastic on top of another. I was up there gripping the hell out of it and pressing it in and trying to hold it. Anyway, what ended up being the trick was just to unbolt it to give everything a little bit more room, and I could jam my hand up in there and feel the back of the second panel so that when the pin went through, I could immediately pop it. The problem with that is that sounds great in theory, but the funny thing is that as I was doing that, I couldn't get the pin far enough into the panels so that I could then pop the thing home. So yeah, that's what was going on with that. So if you've seen the install video, that's really more like hanging out with me in the shop. If you've seen that video, that's what was going on back then. I could not believe that I was getting completely outwitted by a push pin and a couple of pieces of plastic, which to me was pretty funny. So that's some of the behind the scenes with that. The other one was when I'm putting the relay, right? The relay for the blinkers so they don't just go and just blink like crazy. When I was trying to pull, the cover just pops off, but you've got to have like a really small flathead screwdriver to get in there and kind of wiggle it home. I popped it, and when I popped that thing off, I thought I broke it because it literally just went boink like that. The cap goes flying. Anyway, it was just fun doing stuff, but yeah, been having fun with it though. I was able to sneak the thing out for a little bit, and guys, I got to tell you, man, I am hooked on GSXR 1000. I know that there are many other leader bikes out there, but I got to tell you, I'm having a ball with this one. Oh, one other thing. So one of the things, whenever you get a new bike, there's always going to be a bit of a, how do you call it? It's like a fitting process. And even though a bike, when you sit on it, the initial fit, the initial sit on is what will kind of hook you if you're really into ergonomics. Like some guys, it's kind of everybody's a little bit different, but I know that some guys can sit on a bike and they never feel really uncomfortable or uneasy. It's just the bike is what it is. And then other guys get really in the weeds when it comes to ergonomics and having something fit just ever such and so. And I'm kind of in the latter group. I've got a thing for ergonomics, but the thing is with me is I can sit on a bike and it'll feel okay. And then I'll know that I need to make some adjustments here or there to make it work. But a lot of times you don't really ever know what adjustments you need to make until you start riding it. And so what might feel fine as far as lever placement and stuff like that can start to be a little bit wonky once you start riding the bike. What's weird for me on the GSXR 1000 is that the lever placement is actually really good. And typically I like the levers rotated a little bit further down, but for some weird reason, my brain is not so wrapped up in that with this bike. If I'm off the bike and I'm tucked and I'm going into a sweeper, for example, having the brake lever a little bit further up is almost like giving me a home base for this one. Whereas the Daytona, it doesn't work like that. The Daytona, I like everything to be a little bit lower. So it's a little bit weird like that. Although I have raised the brake lever on the Daytona and the clutch lever a little bit since owning the GSXR 1000. So my preference for that has changed. The other thing that I did, and this is kind of funny, and if some of you guys may get this, and if later on, if you're watching this video after it's live, post up and let me know, like, how anal retentive are you as far as, lever placement and foot pedal placement? Because here's the thing, I never ever have an issue with the rear brake. What I always have a problem with is where the shifter is. Okay, so what I did with this bike, because I've got kind of a symmetry glitch sometimes in my head. So what I did is I took a straight edge, basically just anything that's flat. And I took my angle gauge and I literally put the shifter at roughly the same angle as the brake pedal, the rear brake pedal, which is 35 degrees, incidentally, just in case you've never wanted to know what that is. It's roughly 35 degrees from the top of the shifter, not from center line to center line, because the surfaces are different, right? So what I did is I dropped the shifter down to about 35 degrees, which is matching the brake, the foot pedal for the rear brake. If you measured center line out, it would probably be more like 37 or 38 degrees. But anyway, the whole reason why I did that was with any kind of motorcycle, you've got a certain range with your foot. And depending on the shoes or the boots that you're wearing, you may need to raise that shifter up or lower that shifter so that the range of your ankle works with the range of the shifter. And so in my case, because I'm always rocking Chucks, I needed to drop it down just a little bit. And it just so happens that with me, as long as the two angles are roughly the same from right to left, from the brake to the shifter, for whatever reason, my brain works that out as being perfect. So, and really, it doesn't matter. I can wear any shoe with that shifter lever setup, and my brain just works it out. Even if it's kind of a weird, like, spatial issue with my boot, it's like I don't have a problem with it. So I guess what I'm saying is it's totally normal to start to play with adjustments on motorcycles. Don't take just for granted, really, that, where things are where they are permanently. Now, I will say this, some bikes are keyed in. In other words, you'll have like a little locator dowel or something like that in the handlebar that locks certain components in place. And in that case, yeah, you can't really move stuff around. I know that with my Bonneville, I can't roll the brake levers down or aft. I can just basically, they are where they are, which really with that bike isn't that big of a deal. But most other bikes, you can rotate stuff all over the place. I know guys that like their brake hand high and their clutch low and vice versa. I've known guys that like to have their shifter lever up very high. And I'm going, how the hell do you do it? Like almost like for me, I would have to lift my knee to shift where some of these guys had their shifters. This goes back a lot of years back when I was in and around another shop quite a bit. And, I'd help to work on them and dyno them and stuff like that. Anyway, you get some bikes sometimes that were just weird. But it's all rider preference, man. There's just how people are wired differently. And that's the cool thing about bikes is that they are crazy adjustable. Like I can adjust shifters, all over the place to accommodate different foot preferences, different foot, where you like to hold your feet, all of that. So it's real important to adjust your bike. And I know that a lot of guys will get really worked up over suspension bits or whatever, and they end up just kind of getting used to a riding position. But that can lead to fatigue and some other things. So anyway, let me check in with you guys real quick, and then I'm going to give you guys some channel updates. Ryan is first in. Skids is in with the right cadence. Got the ball guy with the flex and the shades. I like it. Ryan said, hey, Skids. Skids hanging out with Ryan. I like it, fellas. So what I'm probably going to do, a long time ago when I was doing primarily car stuff, one of the things that worked out fun for me and a lot of the viewers was when I did my thoughts segments on different machines. And this is just keeping a lockstep with the background noise generator nature of my channel. I would pick, like in that case, it would be a car. In this case, it'd be a bike. And I might say, okay, my thoughts on Triumph T120. And it's not really it's not a review. It's a lot more my thoughts on things. It's my opinions. It's, what I think is cool, what I don't like about it, where I think it holds, maybe a special place for some people, stuff like that. So it's one of those things. How do I put it? It's one of those situations where I like chatting about this kind of stuff, and I love all bikes. So there's that. So be on the lookout for, the resurrection, if you will, of the My Thoughts segment, except in this case, I'm going to be primarily focusing on motorcycles. And if you have a bike, I've got a lot of experience with a lot of different motorcycles. So if you've got one and you want me to like look into it or check it out, it might be a bike that I have some experience with. You never know. So there's that little bit of an update for you. I'm looking forward to that too, because there's some cool stuff that, there's just, what can I say? There's just some fun things we can chat about. And in a way, the My Thoughts segment back in the day would have been what you're kind of experiencing right now. It would be the monologue to, like, whenever I do my live shows, typically, if you're new to the show, thanks for stopping by. I'll start off and I'll start talking about something and I'll ramble on for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, whatever the number is. I'll try to work in some, hey, what's ups while I'm at it with the guys that are checking in live. And then I'll start taking and we'll start talking about stuff like that. Well, the My Thoughts can usually be thought of as like what this would be. And except I'm not interacting with anybody. And then we can talk about the My Thoughts videos in the live show. So that's how a lot of that stuff used to work. Bullet is in, got the thumbs up. Southern Indiana. So I needed this two-wheel Tuesday. My 1320 became air-cooled today with a hole in the block. Freaking no signs. Just let go while cruising on the highway at 65. Dang it. I moved my MT-07 to the front of the garage for Sunday fun rides in the near future. Very nice. Just remember, guys, if you're cold, they're cold. Like I say, GSX-R 1000 is sitting right here. Mainly it's tire stuff. It's not going to get cold enough to freeze anything, but the main idea is just to keep performance geared tires. You don't want to get them below 30, really 36 to 32 degrees. But damn, Southern Indiana 1320 is block let go. That's no good. Ugh, hate to hear that. Um, so one of the things I wanted to, so the cool thing about being able to chat with you guys is I've been able to interact with a lot of you folks, and there's a lot of folks that are really excited. So I'm kind of switching gears here too, by the way. Um, there's a lot of folks that are excited about these new entry level sport bikes. And I say new, they've been out for a while. Bikes like the MT-07, you've got the MT-09, you've got the GSX-8R, motorcycles like that. And then you can start to get into the sport bike side of it. The Aprilia 660, the Daytona 660, and the like. You guys know what I'm talking about. Lots of those bikes are out now. And one of the motorcycles, I'm in the middle of, it's kind of cold and it's been rainy and all this other stuff, but I want to start doing more motorcycle reviews. And so CF Moto 675, yep. Is it 676 or 675? Anyway, great bike, by the way. Is CF Moto buying KTM, by the way? I think they might be. Can't remember. Anyway, one of the funny things is I have grown to really like one of these bikes. And I am like about this because I have a bit of a crush on a motorcycle right now. And it's a bike that there's a GSXR 1000 sitting right there, soon to get a tune, by the way. Going to get a little bit more miles on it, then it's going to get a tune just the way it sits. We're going to talk about that here in a minute too. But I've developed a crush, and it's an unhealthy crush, actually. And I haven't started looking into modifications that are possible for this machine. I haven't really looked into tuning. Yes, I have a lot. That's a lie. Ryan, I do like the Dashing Red. It is so good. And it does not look, you can't see it in pictures. It is so good looking and understated too. One of the things I like about my bike is that it does not have all the livery. And if you look at it, you know it's a Gixxer, right? I mean, you can see it, but it's not, it's a little bit understated, and I like that. Well, as understated as a red motorcycle can be. Anyway, getting back to it, it's the GSX-8R, whatever it is, the Gixxator. Guys, I am crushing on this thing a little too hard. Okay. I rode one in the demo ride, and I gotta tell you guys, if I didn't have the Bonneville, and I mean this with all sincerity, if I did not have my Bonneville, there'd be a blue and white GSX-8R sitting right next to this dashing red GSXR 1000. So what do I like about it? Okay, so the first motorcycle that I will be reviewing at Stubbs Cycles will be the GSX-8R. And by the way, speaking of that, I am breaking down and I'm getting a helmet mount, a camera, the mic, the whole rig, all of that. Because I thought that I had this figured out. And by the way, the live show is where you're going to get like behind the scenes type stuff, like what happened during this or what else are you working on? That's what the live show gives you too. So, besides being us being able to interact, you'll hear a lot about the goofy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Guys, I thought, and it's a killer rig, and I'll end up using it because a lot of these action cameras, they'll link to an app and you can control the camera through an app on your phone. And this thing is an awesome stem mount for a phone. And I had it set up to where, and it was really good too, where you could see everything. Like you could see the display, you could see out the windscreen, you can see everything. It looked really good. And I've got a wireless mic, and I was like, man, this is going to be great. So I get all of that set up. And by the way, if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. I know kind of the direction that I'm going, but If you guys have recommendations for those kind of rigs, man, I'm always willing to learn because I don't know the first thing about it. Anyway, the thing freaked out though once the revs went up on the bike. All the stabilization in the world was not going to make this setup work whatsoever, which is a bummer because I thought I had it all in the bag. But anyway, I'm going to end up going to camera mount on the helmet mount, which I don't really like. I don't really like it because you get a lot of like head movement and things like that. So I got to be mindful of that when I'm doing the reviews. But anyway, aside from me doing like, I'll be putting out test videos like, hey, this is terrible, watch this. Anyway, the bike that I really do want to revisit is the GSX 8R. The reason why is because I kind of fell in love with that bike when I did the demo day ride. And again, guys, there is a 2025 GSX-R 1000 sitting like right here, okay? It's not about the power. It's not about anything. I love the way this bike looks, the GSX-8R. I love the stacked headlight look. It's got a little buff appearance to it. I just, that bike with a tail tidy, and I'm sure there's aftermarket handlebars because I would like a little bit more of an aggressive riding position. Guys, that bike is peppy. Like it is just as eager as you can imagine. And it is as quick to wheelie as just grabbing a handful of throttle. It just comes right. Oh my God, the bike is such a riot to ride. And so, you know, at whatever it is, 80 horsepower, if you put an airbox mod, a filter and a tune on it, and maybe an exhaust, you can get around 80, let's say 85 or 90 horsepower to the rear tire. Guys, if you don't think that's a lot, it doesn't take a lot to move this little bike. And not only that, but it's a parallel twin. So it is, all the power is accessible right now. Like you don't have to be up in the RPM range where you've got maybe too much horsepower to go along with not enough torque with other bikes. It's nothing but torque. And guys, just so you know, whenever you've got to rep something way up in the RPM range, what ends up happening is horsepower is violent. Horsepower upsets the chassis. Horsepower just gets it. Horsepower is something happening at speed, which is typically fast. Torque, on the other hand, torque just makes things happen. Torque's hard on tires, but it's not really upsetting to the chassis. Torque is what makes you do wheelies, which is fun. Fun story about that today, by the way. But it's just a freaking happy little bike. I don't know if it's as happy as a GSX-R 1000 because that thing is just in a good mood all the time. But GSX-8R, it's just a willing, fun motorcycle, and I can't wait to spend time with one. I would really like to get one long term. I would figure out a way to use that thing as a daily. Like, I'm not kidding. That's how much I did like that bike. It's how comfortable I felt with it. So, but let me get back to you guys. Ryan said, oh, heard a rumor about KTM. Skid saying it's difficult not to love a Pokey 270. They are fun. Sam's talking about a car, I guess. But yeah, I don't really know, if I'm being fair. I don't really know if I'm going to be as geeked up to do a test as I am with the 8R. I don't know why that is. There's a visual of that bike with that stubby little tail tidy. It's a good looking bike, man. I got to tell you again, I don't even know what I would do with it if I had it. I just would love to spend more time with that bike. But there is some cool stuff coming. So the CB650 is also going to be one of the first bikes that I'm going to be riding, and that'll be my first experience with Honda's e-clutch. So if you guys aren't familiar with this is an electric clutch that basically makes it to where you don't, it kind of makes it ride like a automatic. It's an automatic clutch is what it is. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, it's not a DCT where you just have buttons you can shift up or down. It doesn't work like that. But what it does do is it just allows you to be able to start and ride off and then, click through the gears and like nothing. So I'm kind of like trying to figure this out. But anyway, I was up at the dealership today and I was talking to the guys about it, and they're going, look, there's one sitting right there on the showroom floor. They're like, dude, take it with you. I'm going, okay. I got to get my rig all set up and all that. So Ryan saying we need to convert Professor to having an Indian FTR 1200 in his stable. I think you'll love that bike. Cafe Scrambler. So I'll tell you this. I liked the FTR a lot. And what pisses me a little bit is that Indian has the FTR. Almost said Honda. Harley Davidson, what was it, the X? Oh, y'all will know this before I will remember it. XFR, what was it? They also had a flat track bike, and it was a 750, right? And they had that one, and then they had a 1200. If you look it up, it's orange. Like most of them were orange, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember the dadgum. Look, it turns into alphabet soup when it comes to Harley Davidson. I know what I'm thinking of, and if you look up orange Harley Davidson flat track 1200, I'm sure it'll pop up. But the fact is that Harley had bikes like that and quit making them. But now Indian's got the FTR. And by the way, FTR means flat track racer. It's a kick-ass motorcycle. And so the main thing when you're looking at, what that bike could represent to so many more riders. I mean, look at what the FTR did for Indian in terms of bringing in new blood, new excitement. Folks are talking about this thing, and it's no slouch, guys. That thing is 120 horsepower. It's a freaking monster. Okay. So, in fact, oh my gosh, dude. Okay. Talk about bouncing all over the place. Okay. So check this out. When the FTR was announced, about that time, the Thruxton and the Speed Twin from Triumph were really starting to pick up speed. But more to the point, the Triumph Speed Twin was just running away with it. Where guys would look at a Thruxton and think that it looks cool, they would look at the Speed Twin, and that's the hot rod. It's the lightest weight variant of the Bonnevilles. It's really just a flash and a filter away from making some pretty decent power. And when you looked at that bike, you would see it and go, man, if it only had like 115 or 120 horsepower. And you look at the Thruxton and go, look, for the money, it had better come with more power than what it's got. Well, look no further than the FTR, because the FTR pretty much showed up and it was like, look, it's a flat track, scrambly type of a hot rod that would have fit right in with that retro racing aesthetic that, Harley Davidson basically owns with all their flat tracks. So, it's one of those things where Triumph does a great job with the true retro motorcycle. And I mean retro in that it is old school and it only has the technology that it has to satisfy the folks that have to have it, right? But the FTR, with the more power that it's got, with the look, and then they got the smaller tires and wheels on it, it really starts to handle better. That's where that bike really started coming into its own. And so because of the FTR, I've got this like love. Well, I don't want to say love. I've got this tolerate-hate relationship with Harley Davidson at this point. And I look at Harley and I'm going, guys, you've got the RevMax engine, the 1200. You're not going to make the Street Fighter. You're not going to make the Bronx with the 970. You're making the Pan America. Why don't you make a freaking flat track? It's what you do. It's what you do. Like, that's freaking Harley racing from when I was a little guy. Man, it was flat track racing and drag racing and street racing for some of those things. Anyway, you get the idea. Um, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Anyway, get back to you guys. Southern's asking, in the winter, should I use non-ethanol fuel? In any vehicle, and this is not just for motorcycles, this is for any vehicle that runs on gasoline that's going to be stored for more than 6 months. You're going to want to run non-ethanol fuel in there. And the reason for that is because if you're dealing with a lot of temperature variations, you're going to get moisture into your tank because ethanol is hydrophilic, means it likes water. It's like when you mix up a mixed drink, right? Hydrophobic would be oil and water, right? Because they separate, but that's not how alcohol works. And so, yes, I would always say in the winter, if you can get away with it, yes, run an ethanol-free fuel. Also, in the wintertime, if you've got a car and you're running E85 or a bike and you're running E85, it is going to be hell to get that thing to start. At any temperature below like 45 will have the net effect of pissing off a vehicle that's on any kind of high ethanol content. So in general, yes, I would say if you can find it, run non-ethanol during the winter. It'll make cold start easy, especially if you've been allowing that vehicle to sit for any real length of time. Sam, 110 swapped ATC 70. My cousin had one of the 70cc trikes. Fun little thing. Southern's going, during the winter, are there any maintenance suggestions? No, not really. Just stay on top of your maintenance. A lot of guys do their maintenance during the winter time. It's just that way they don't, if it's a vehicle that they don't ride or drive a lot, it's just because it's going to be down anyway, so you might as well do your maintenance. So saying a starter was an 86 Honda TRX 250R. I have a 200 TRX and I need to put the carburetor on it. Ryan saying, I know Harley Davidson's been dropping the ball. Man, I got to tell you, dude, I'm just, and Skids is kind of backing this up, saying, heard some rumors about a street focused Pan America. Harley Davidson is known for building bikes that folks are modding. In other words, like the Hooligan Series Pan Am builds. Yeah. You know, I'll put it to you, and I've heard, you're exactly right. They will release a machine that is in somewhat lockstep with what their customers are putting together. You know what's weird though, is that so you've got the Hooligan Series is what the RevMax 1200 engine in the Pan America, where it's actually non-restricted, it's 150 horsepower. Thing's beast. But with that being said, you know, the thing is, if they start doing something cool with that bike, that's great. But what Hoken had said, that's the guy that's over Harley Davidson, was that the Bronx / Street Fighter platform was not going to happen because they couldn't build it and sell it and make enough profit margin for the price that they would absolutely have to sell it for. Oh, that's painful to hear. That's tough to hear, because without that bike, there's a host of folks that will not go to a Harley Davidson dealership. Now, if the Pan America is cool looking, like if it's a true street type of a, hot rod, and it looks the part and all of that, man, listen, that could end up being a winner for them. And I'm optimistic for them that could end up being the case. I just don't, I just don't know that they would actually do it. I mean, they're already building the bike. Why not do something cool? Well, because of this. Okay, look, have you seen what these motorcycles cost nowadays? And that is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not just how much they cost, but it's how close so many of them are in performance. There's a performance envelope that the modern motorcycle can achieve that is, it's disturbingly good. Like it's weird, especially if you've been away from it for a while and you're coming back, and you can look at bikes like a best one to look at. It's like a GSXR 1000, CBR 1000, any of the leader class bikes, whether they're Japanese or European. These bikes are powerful on a completely different level than what a lot of folks were used to. Even though they're incredibly docile, the fueling is good, everything about them, you can ride them slow, fast, it doesn't matter. But holy moly, are they powerful and capable, and they need all the rider aids you can give them. Whereas back in the day, 2008, 2005, 2007, GSXR 1000 or 750 or any of the bikes, ZX10, none of those bikes had any real kind of rider aids into like up to like 2008, 9, or 10, I think is when the Kawasaki's, the KTRC started coming up. But man, I got to tell you, it's crazy when you think that, we've come so far, right? But it's not just those bikes. The technology that those motorcycles brought to the table, well, this has taken me forever to get to this point. But that trickled down into the sport naked bikes, and then into the entry level bikes got some of that too. And so you're seeing these machines that are far and away more capable. And I guess the point is that Harley Davidson is going to get tested against that level of refinement and that level of horsepower and performance and everything else. And they're going to be judged how they perform based on the price point that they show up to the party at. So if, let's say, you have a Pan America, it's 150 horsepower, that's great. But the problem is that it may be going up against motorcycles that are 175 horsepower, like a Aprilia Tuono, or it could be going up against, start picking other bikes, right? I mean, worst case scenario is you line the thing up against GSX S1000 or a Katana, which is underrated from the factory by a pretty significant margin. You start putting it up against the likes of an MT-09, which doesn't make near the power, but is significantly lighter. So you start going up against those bikes, and I'm afraid that whatever Harley Davidson puts out is going to get its butt whipped. And it's going to be put out for public consumption by journalists that have already got a bit of a chip on their shoulder when it comes to the brand to begin with. So when you take all of that into account, it basically, look, for the guys that want it, they'll buy it. But for the kind of money that you're going to be looking to throw at one of the more street-oriented hot rod Pan Americas, man, there's a whole lot of other motorcycles out there that have been tested, time true, blue reliable type of platforms. And I'm afraid that Pan America hot rod's going to end up being somewhere around $18,000 or $19,000, which puts it right in the middle of, like, that is murderer's freaking row. Anytime you put them in this economy, and well, in 2025, if you have a motorcycle and it costs between, say, 18 and 19,000 and 21, 22,000, oh my goodness, you are. I mean, that's BMW S1000. That's Aprilia Tuono factory. That gets you into MV Agusta territory. With the dragster, by the way, there are some bikes that you will have to contend with, and then everything from Ducati, by the way, let's not forget about those boys. But you're going to be dealing and contending with all kinds of very strong competition when you look at those bikes compared to what they might do with the Pan America. Man, if you're Harley Davidson and you're looking at that, okay, let's talk about that. So if you're Harley Davidson and you're looking at what you can do with the Pan America, but you know that you're going to be limited by price, what do you end up doing with that bike? For me, I take the existing platform, put different suspension on it, drop it, make it much more street oriented, put 6-inch rear, normal 17-inch front up there, 190 55 out back, 120 70 up front, give it some good brakes, and just kind of send it off into the world and price it like 17 grand and try to get out of there. You know what I mean? Like, just here you go, and then get out of the way. Because and the thing is I'm envisioning this thing in my head, dude. You know what I would do if I could get my hands on these things? And it is, it's that platform drop, just like what I'm explaining. Like, man, if you could just give me a single round headlight and a fly screen on that thing and just leave it alone, do a number plate. Anyway, I guess where I'm going with this is if you can build a little hot rod out of that thing that can go up against like the Ducati Monster or something like that, that would be really what you would have to do. But it's got to come in at a price that's going to make sense, because you're going to be compared to these bikes, and you've got to be able to compare with them favorably. And I don't think that they can. Skid saying the King of Baggers, the new Road Glide. Yeah, but the problem with that is, I get what they're doing with it, but it's still a CVO. It's still a Road Glide, man. It's not like a hot rod with some bags on it. It's a great bike, don't get me wrong, but it's, yeah, it is what it is. Sam's liking the 2-strokes. I like 2-strokes too. I like a good brap. Skin saying a few tweaks here and there. The R&D is done on the Pan Am. That could turn a profit and keep the 150 horsepower. Yeah, you have to keep the $150, dude. Like, if you don't, why even show up? That thing, you've got to have 150 horsepower, and you're going to need it because that bike ain't light either. That's the other thing. Ryan's hanging out with Skids. Skids saying, great point. Aprilia Aprilia V4 or Pan Am. Yeah. Kind of makes you wonder. Ryan's saying Aprilia. Skid saying, yep, looking forward to seeing if Indian is bringing some increased displacement or cubic inches to the Indian Challenger. I love the fixed fairing bikes turning into an old man on a motorcycle. I am with you on that. But I like fixed screens because I'm a sport bike guy at heart, and all of our screens are fixed. The thing that I like about fixed windscreens or fixed fairings is that when you get to speed, buffeting is not translated into the handlebar. One of the things that I was not a fan of on the Z900 RS Cafe, especially when it had the factory stock mirrors, is that you could be riding that bike and any kind of buffeting and wind, it would catch those mirrors, and you got this like it would make the bike feel very uneasy. And you do not get that in a fixed fairing, and you don't get that in with bar end mirrors or something like that. They're too small, and they're not gonna affect you as much. But one thing I did notice that I didn't notice, the one thing I noticed with the GSX-R 1000 that I did not notice with my Daytona, was that even the factory GSX-R 1000 mirrors would kind of give you, like, it won't move the bars obviously, but it'll still give you a little bit of a, little pitter patter in the head. If you're going through like different, if winds like at a slight, crosswind or something like that, you can get buffeted a little bit. So that was kind of weird. Speaking of mirrors, those winglet mirrors that I've got on the GSX-R 1000 are doing really well, surprisingly. Those are just Amazon specials. And through the judicious and liberal employment of thread locker, not for the affixment to the bike, but so that the thing doesn't move. the mirror itself off of the base plate, it hasn't moved, and it's seen some relatively significant speeds, and it was like that with the mirrors flipped up, and they're good. I mean, they're great. They're blind spot checkers, and they work great like that. So, um, I don't know. I'm looking at them right now. I've got them folded flat. I like them both ways. So far, so good. Um, Oats Kid saying he loves Springfield. Yep. Oh, Ryan saying that's the bike I'm working towards in the lineup. I might just settle on a Chief. Chief's a good bike. There's a Chief. No, I'm sorry, it's a Scout. That's one of the hot rodded Scouts that's up at Stubbs right now. I kind of want to ride that one too. Ryan saying love bar and mirrors. I tell you what, Ryan. So no kidding, on bikes that accommodate them. So not a sport bike with a fixed fairing, but anything else like that. Maybe not a cruiser so much. At least I don't really need them on the T-Bird. But where they make sense, I am a massive proponent of bar end mirrors. And it's not for a reason that you might think. I'm a huge fan of bar end mirrors from a safety point of view. One, they don't buffet your head, which is great because that's comfort. And that's, I mean, those stock mirrors, I'm not kidding. I mean, they would rattle you to the point where everything gets blurry because your head's getting shoved around everywhere or slapped around everywhere. But I like bar and mirrors because they work phenomenally well for checking blind spots. This spot right over here. I really like them for that. And oh, by the way, those winglet mirrors that I've got on the GSX, I'm pointing at it like you can see it. It's stupid. Anyway, the winglet mirrors that I have work just like bar end mirrors for a sport bike. I kid you not. It's got the same kind of vibe. I don't know why that is. Maybe because they're small and it's just a mind trick that anyway, that's kind of how they're working for me. I was just saying a side story. I watched a short vid or reel a day Vanilla Ice on that 92 or 93 GSXR 750. Yeah, that was a slick bike back in the day. By the way, try finding one. There is a GSXR 1100, so the same era type bike. It's selling for like 14 grand. I mean, it is a mint example, but holy crap, dude. Skids. Oh, look good on a Street Twin. Yeah. I mean, I'm loving the bar ends on the Bonneville. Oh yeah. Had them set so they didn't move around. I mean, it did drop the bike once, had to buy new mirrors. Yeah, I tell you what, man. Yes, RC Cola in there. Maybe you know what's up. So yeah, I really enjoy the old school flavor of some of the bikes that I have, but I got to tell you, the newer stuff is really good. This is something else I wanted to talk about. I know that I had rattled on probably annoyingly about, older bikes. They don't have the rider aids and they don't have this, that, or whatever, they also don't have quick shifters, shift lights. They don't have gas gauges. There's a lot of things that these modern bikes have that you kind of wish you had from back in the day. The big thing though for me, and this is what I'm going to be talking about when I do my thoughts on the GSXR 1000. It's not the rider modes. It's not traction control, wheel control. It's none of that. It's how good the quick shifter is that sold me on that bike. I have so much less distraction by having that quick shifter. It's kind of hard to explain. And if you've never ridden a bike like fairly hard with a quick shifter and you're used to just fanning through gears, I can go ride the Daytona, get onto the GSXR 1000, and it's not a transition. I'll still kind of grab the clutch for upshifts every once in a while anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But if I ride the GSX-R 1000 and then I immediately get onto my Daytona, bet your ass that I'm trying to find a quick shifter that isn't there. I kid you not. It is so funny because I caught myself because I got the bike out the other day and it talking about the Daytona, and I'm first gear, second gear, and then I'm like, I can feel my foot trying to come up. Clutch hand, you got to do something here, bro. Anyway, it's funny. So it's real easy to go from old to new, but it's funny how quickly you get used to new, I guess is where I'm going with that. This kid saying he even likes old school soda. Yes, I do. Dude, if you can find a tab, nice. Ryan saying lemonade here. Lemonade comes strong. Skid saying, I'm assuming it has both up and down quick shift. Yes, it does. And it is really good. Saying, love mine on the Ducati. That's as close to an automatic as I like. Same. Sipping on water. I like it. Yeah, Ryan's liking his too. I tell you what, the latest generation of quick shifters is surprisingly good. And it will spoil you when you start really using it for one of its best traits, which is you're just riding the bike through gears and you're just paying attention to the ride and you're not thinking about anything. There's no upsetting the chassis. There's none of that. The other fun thing about it is the burbles and the pops that you get with it. It'll rev up and it'll go, when it shifts. And if it catches something that it doesn't like, it'll burble even more. Like it won't let it shift. It'll kind of try to let it anyway. I had the bike out and was a little bit over on the side and I was rolling into the throttle pretty hard. And I went to grab a quick shift and it's like, nah, you don't want to do that just yet. It's, but it'll let you play. It'll let you have fun. And it's like I say, I've got nothing but good things to say about the way that this thing's set up. And I'm just not even hitting it hard. I'm just out playing with it because it's still going through break-in. Skid saying, loving the pops on D-Cell. I'll tell you what, mine won't be popping that much. When it gets tuned, it's going to be, it'll still have the cat on it. It's going to have the, it will have the slip on, but it's still going to have the cat. It's factory exhaust and all that. There's no need to go crazy with one of these bikes because talk about the GSX-R 1000, they're really good from the factory. And unless you're roll racing or spending a lot of time on a track, even then, I don't think you're going to have any real problems with the factory exhaust. They make about the same horsepower up top. The real area where aftermarket exhaust picks up is through the mid-range. I don't really need it because I don't roll race it. And if you're starting at a low RPM and you're just hammering the thing and maybe, you're hitting it like, $8,000 and you need the extra mid-range to carry you through as you're hitting it, maybe, but at those RPMs, my bike is on the side of the tire. It's on the corner of the tire, and I don't really need to be doing any wide open hits at that point. Skid saying, hey, Hard Rock. Skid saying the Ducati factory exhaust is truly amazing. I really have no desire to change. It sounds so good. And that's one of the good things. People go, oh, these European bikes are so expensive. It's like, yeah, they're expensive, but you look at all the stuff you get with them. Like the Aprilia. I got a friend of mine is getting Aprilia RSV4 and a Saxon Ring bike. And it's like, dude, you ain't got to do nothing to that bike. It's already like everything's already been done to it. It's going to say my Harley, on the other hand, I finally got 2-in-1 exhaust and a high flow filter. Not the elbow. Yeah, you can't run the elbow on those things. You'll snap your freaking shin. Skid saying, I know what I'm doing this weekend. Oh, yeah. If it's nice, I want to get the bike out for a while, but we'll see. I got a lot of stuff to do, though. I might not be able to get on that thing, but we'll see. But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We're coming up on an hour. If you're new to the show and you hung out for this long, thank you very much for stopping by. If you're watching this after we went live, well, chances are you're probably asleep by now, but thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully your favorite new background noise generating thing. And guys, as always, everybody's going through something, so get out there and do something cool for somebody, because chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, guys, we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for stopping by.